Hello, I'm David DeCosmo. Welcome to Preview, Electric City Television's public affairs program. Joining me today is Gary Drapek, who is the CEO and president of the United Way in Lackawanna County, and actually beyond Lackawanna too, Gary, yes?
That's correct, Lackawanna and Wayne, David.
And Wayne County as well. And we've talked several times about the annual United Way campaign and how the monies are allocated to various agencies. That's important, but today I want to focus on one specific issue that the United Way has been tackling, and that is the subject of elderly isolation. There was an event that just took place a short time back specifically addressing that issue, but Gary, in effect, this is going to be an ongoing project of the United Way. Let's talk about the problem.
Sure.
What is the problem that you have been seeing as the volunteers work in the field?
Well, David, I like to call this one of the silent situations or silent problems that we have out there, and it is basically a problem of senior individuals, older adults, who are confined to their home by themselves. Very rarely leave the home for various reasons. And we're finding out now as we go further that this situation compounds additional situations. Individuals who consider themselves or who are isolated have a greater chance of early dementia. They have a greater chance and susceptibility to the flu and to colds. They have a greater rate of heart issues, and the list goes on. We began to do some research together with the Moses Taylor Foundation about a year ago, and organizations like AARP, for example, have listed senior isolation as one of their top 5 initiatives moving forward. World Health Organization has listed older adult isolation as one of the top problems in the world. And there's another group. Oh yes, the association, the National Association of Social Workers.
Now, this is understandable in some ways, but surprising in one major way, because today it seems that there are more things offered for the elderly, for senior citizens, than ever before. Our active adult centers have expanded into programs not just during the daytime, but even in the evening.
Well, I think you're hitting exactly the nail on the head of what we're trying to do with this program. The senior centers, for example, the active adult senior centers that are out there now, are seeing a decline in the number of people that are actually going to them.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Over time, there are. One of the issues that we're running into all the time is transportation. You know, they have numerous vans out there that will pick individuals up, but many times the seniors don't know about them. Education is one of the biggest pieces of this puzzle that we're trying to put together. We're blessed in this region, Lackawanna, Wayne County, as you said. Area Agency on Aging, for example, provides a myriad of services. Organizations like Seniors Serving Seniors, United Neighborhood Centers, even the WISE. They're all involved in senior activities. But number one, the seniors don't know they're available. And number two, we need a more coordinated approach, because a lot of these organizations are working in silos.
They work individually, they don't really...
Right, they don't tie each other together. And another thing is that isolation, and I hate to say the isolation, but keeping to yourself is really a self-determinant. You know, there are individuals out there who just want to be in their home and they're happy, and you know, they're having a wonderful time on their own. There's others who have lost a spouse, who maybe a friend has moved away, or they have lost
no one to turn to.
Their children in this mobile age, I mean, their children could be all over the country, the rest of their family, and they're literally stuck in the home by themselves.
And there's another example of, here you have a technological society with the ability to put a laptop in front of someone and they can see and talk to the grandchildren 9 states away, but 9 out of 10 of the older adults don't want to touch the laptop.
Well, and not only they don't want to touch the laptop, but another indicator of social isolation is income. There are about 12,000 households in Lackawanna County that are led by seniors. 12,000 households with seniors that are the head of household. Of that 12,000, about 40% have incomes of 25,000 or below. Mm-hmm. So the simple fact of having internet access is just cost prohibitive for them, or going out and buying a laptop, or going out and buying a Kindle Fire or something of that nature, an iPad. It's interesting that you bring up the whole idea of technology. There's a whole new program out there that we're taking a hard look at, which are called virtual senior centers, where organizations will give seniors who are isolated, alone, who can't get out of the home, they will give them a laptop, or they will give them an iPad or a Kindle, and they can interact using that with a senior center. And maybe for 3 hours a day, they will get online exercises, they will have online chats back and forth with someone else. And studies have shown that just simply by doing that, it has increased the feeling of social involvement with seniors.
Yeah, great idea, because you create the opportunity for some interaction.
Exactly.
Where it didn't exist. Exactly. But again, you've got to know that senior is out there.
And that's part of our plan, and it's actually a couple of pronged plan. The first thing we're doing is we have a group out there that is developing what we're calling our senior isolation tool. And we're trying to make this a universal tool that will be used by the medical profession, that will be used by social workers like Area Agency on Aging and some of the other agencies, with 5 to 6 simple questions that will identify whether or not that individual considers themselves isolated or alone. We're very fortunate, and then we have the assistance of a gentleman by the name of Dr. Leonard Kay, who's with the University of Maine Center on Aging, who's one of the nation's most renowned individuals on solving the problem of senior isolation. So he's been consulting with us to try to get this working. The concept being is, once we get the medical profession, social workers, social agencies using the same tool, we can then get this into a database, and then we can identify the individuals, what their specific needs are. Because your need, for example, may be transportation.
Right.
You want to get out, but you don't have a way to get out there. My need may be more fear, because seniors have a fear sometimes of going outside of their own little environment.
Yes. Yeah.
So this tool will help us identify, A, who is isolated or considers themselves isolated, and B, what exact services do they need to kind of bring this back.
So you can hopefully be able to tie in with other services, such as one that comes to mind would be Meals on Wheels.
Yes, in fact, there's another very good point that you're bringing up. I have to stress that this is not just the United Way that is working on this project. In fact, we are what you would say, I guess, the management group of this project. We have a consortium of about 40 different agencies. They're nonprofit, for-profit, local foundations who are meeting regularly to move this project forward. So the ownership of it is the community's ownership.
Yes.
It's not just one organization.
Well, again, if you can get input from these agencies, and we know Meals on Wheels actually gets to individual homes, and often that interaction is the only interaction that some of those seniors have.
Right, exactly.
So if Meals on Wheels can convey that to you, or to these multiple agencies working together, then perhaps someone can decide this is an individual who may be receptive to that laptop program, for instance.
Or some of the other bigger programs that are out there. And since we've been working on this project, many individuals has been coming up to me saying, well, what can we as a community do? And anyone in any neighborhood could be part of this project. And it's just, and I've been saying this for the 30 years of my career, I think, just knock on the door of your next door neighbor. Check on your neighbor, check on the elderly individual down the street. Make sure that they're healthy, make sure that they're getting to their physician when they should be getting to their physician. or just stop in, and say hi, how you doing? I mean, that would make a huge difference to a group service.
That's a great point, and it's one that comes to us at a time when, unfortunately, society has changed to the extent where not everybody even knows their neighbors.
Well, I hate to, not to kind of get off track, but you and I both remember the days when our front doors were left open.
Absolutely.
I mean, how many times do you do that now? But I truly believe that we can get back to a community feeling where we have a community sense of responsibility for the person down the street.
This may be off track as well, but could the census that's coming up be helpful in this?
The census is going to be absolutely vital as we move forward, because as we know, funding for communities, for states, for counties, for cities, from the federal government actually comes through a lot of the information from the census.
Based on census results,
exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's why, as part of what the United Way is doing now, and I guess it goes hand in hand with the senior project, is that we are advocating, and encouraging and helping people to fill out the census as we move forward, because it's so important to this community and to this region.
Yeah. Are there programs already in place that are trying to identify some of these isolated individuals? I mean, I realize a lot of this is in the planning stage, a lot of it, and it has to be, and I understand that. But is there anything already working?
There are many different organizations out there that are working. When at this stage of the game, what I tell people that ask me that question is, your first phone call should be to your local area agency on aging, because the Area Agency on Aging serves mostly, in most communities, as a hub for other senior services. So that would be your first stop, your first start rather, to see what services are out there. And you could branch out from there. There's information and referral numbers like 211. If you call 211, tell them that you're looking for a senior service, whatever it is, senior center, maybe transportation, maybe food pantry. They will be able to give you that information as well. Our job basically now is to kind of pull all of that in together, so that it's now, and I hate to say this, but it's a little bit sporadic. So as a senior, if you're looking for a particular service, you may have to call 5 or 6 different places, okay? Our goal in this is to have a one-stop shop. Sure. Where you're identified as a senior who is isolated or lonely. You make the phone call, or someone refers you into it, and then there's a navigator, what we're calling navigators, which will then set you up with all of the services that are available.
I can see where just being observant would be a key to helping identify those individuals who may be in need of some assistance. And what I mean when I say that is, if you have, pardon me, individual A who has come every week to one of the centers, and suddenly you don't see individual A for 3 weeks.
Exactly. And going back to mailmen, for example.
Prime example,
we've
sure.
had, I cannot tell you how many times in my career we've received phone calls from mailmen who would didn't see Mary in the past couple of weeks, and can we send someone up to check on her? Or a couple of years ago, we had an individual in an Elephant that mailman called us and said that she answered the door in a sweater, and he looked in and she had space heaters, electric space heaters going all over the place because her pipes froze and her furnace was out. So we were able to go in and fix that. But it's exactly what you just said. It's just being observant, talking to the individual next door. Because one of the other things too about the whole concept of older adult isolation, the rate of suicide in older adults who are isolated is higher than the rate of suicide for others who might be connected.
Probably feeling they have nowhere to turn,
exactly,
nowhere to
look
to.
As I said, it's higher rates of dementia, higher rates of falling. That's the other thing. Just your basic functional abilities. There's a higher rate of falling.
The one you mentioned, higher rate of the flu, kind of throws me, because
Doesn't it?
Normally you would think there would be exposure to other people that would lead to your problem.
Well,
there.
and that's a good question. I asked Dr. K about that, and he said, well, the reason for that is because the isolated senior doesn't seek medical assistance.
Attention.
They're not like a senior who's out and active is going to their physician more often. They're getting checked more often. The isolated senior just doesn't leave the home, his or her home, and is not going for medical treatment or medical checkups as much.
Yeah, yeah. And there's another irony here, because as you try to formulate plans to deal with the problem of older isolation, your potential, if I may call it, customer base is constantly growing.
Well, it is, and one of the things that we've looked at constantly, and you and I have talked about this over the years a lot. We have one of the largest per capita senior populations in the country. Whether it's true or urban legend, I don't know, but it always seems that we're being compared to Dade County, Florida,
yes, yeah,
and Lackawanna, back and forth. The flip side of this is that it's like going out and getting new customers. So we're now going to get new customers, which means that we're hoping that we can get the funding to continue the programs that on the back side of this.
Sure.
Which is always the difficult part.
And are there federal funds to address this issue?
There are federal funds to address it. We are advocating strongly with the state for the state to increase some of their funding to the aging programs. We wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for the Moses Taylor Foundation, who basically came up with this with a little bit of funding to start this planning process, who had the foresight to see that this is a problem that's only going to get worse as time goes on.
Sure.
Because our senior population is growing. And I'm one of them.
Welcome to the club. But again, as that senior population does grow, there will be a statistical number of those who are aging that fall into this class of being isolated. Industry itself presenting job opportunities for the children of these people and calling them away from this area.
Well, and that's you mentioned industry, and one of our hopes in this plan is that we're going to be able to go to the businesses in the area, the HR departments, and individuals who are approaching retirement, that we could talk to them in advance and say, this is what's available out for you.
That's a good move, sure.
Yeah, it makes things, just so people go into retirement a little bit more prepared.
Yeah.
Retirement is also, people who are thrown into retirement all of a sudden. You wake up one day and, oh my gosh, you're 65, 70 years old, I have to retire. People who aren't planning for retirement are also at a very higher rate to be considered isolated, because once they leave their position, whatever job it is, they have nothing to fall back on.
This has probably been a problem for many, many years that's generally been overlooked.
Well, I think it has been overlooked, and one of the issues that we're also looking at is the difference in interests of the newer, I guess I could say, the newer older adults.
Well, the senior centers
right.
are already looking at that. I mentioned earlier that the typical lunchtime bingo program
exactly
exists, but they've had to expand into evening programs.
Well, and it's not only the bingo, but when I used to walk into these senior centers, it would be bingo and quilting, and they'd have maybe a jukebox going on over in the corner. Well, now we have to look at different alternatives for that, like photography classes, for example, or more outdoor gardening classes. Someone said to me the other day, I'm not going to sit and play bingo, I'd rather go in a kayak. Yeah. And go out. Yeah. So we as social services have to look at different activities for the new older adults, as I call them.
Sure. And now, with the focus on isolated older adults, you may have to gear some of those programs. Again, we talked about perhaps bringing technology into those homes,
yep.
training people how to use the technology, and you can do it very basically. Mm-hmm. And set up entirely new programs where it isn't still being at home, being connected, but not playing bingo.
Exactly. And one of the issues too and you talk about being connected. I don't want to say it's overlooked, but there's a vast difference between urban and rural. In the rural communities, there is actually a higher rate of isolation. Number one, because of geography. Sure. Homes are much more spread apart in those areas. Number two, individuals who are brought up in, and there's all these psychological background studies that have been done on this. Individuals who have been brought up in rural communities are more independent, they're more agrarian. It's more, I'm not going to ask for help. I'm not.
That's
readily,
a mindset.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's exactly the mindset. So they tend to be a little bit more isolated because it's, I don't need the help, I don't want the help. And geography, again, the services always tend to be centered in the urban centers. So you go out into like rural Moscow, for example, or Honesdale, or in Wayne County, it's very difficult to get a service for an individual who lives out in a rural area.
Sure.
So that's going to be another. And if you go into, like, for example, in one of the biggest problems right now in Wayne County, not just for seniors but across the board, is connectivity with internet. There's pockets of where they cannot get internet service at all. So we can do all of the online programs that we want. If we can't provide the bandwidth, it's just not going to work.
It's a very in-depth problem that has so many facets. So I'm so glad to see that at least an effort is being made to look into these things right now. Now, as our time draws toward a close, there are people who are watching who probably are encouraged to see that the effort is being made and understand that that effort is going to be ongoing, that this is not something that's solvable overnight or on a weekend. What can someone who's watching this program, is there something that they can do to help facilitate things, perhaps just by identifying other neighbors? Or
the number one, and again, as we said in the beginning, thing that someone can do that's watching your program right now is, as I said, walk down the street, walk next door, pick up the phone, call your senior neighbor, make sure they're okay. Make sure you keep an eye on them. If they feel that there is a problem with the senior, if they haven't seen them in a while, if they feel that there's an illness involved, call the Area Agency on Aging. They will send caseworkers out at this stage of the game to check on the senior, make sure that everything is okay. As we move forward, we're hoping to get what we're calling navigators, as I said, where it's going to be a one-stop shop where people will be able to call or to visit, and they will be connected to all of these other services. We're not there yet, but hopefully within a year or so we will be. But I think the best thing right now is to, as you said, be aware. Keep your eyes open. Make sure you're taking care of your neighbors.
I would even venture to make a suggestion too, that there may be people watching, either as an individual or a representative of an agency, that may have an idea as to how to address this problem. And we shouldn't assume that those gathered have already thought of everything.
Well, one of the things that, and it's funny you said that, one of the things we just said the other day is we have to step back and we have to stop telling people this is what you need. We have to ask people what is it that you need, right? And anyone who has any suggestions, comments, or would like to actually join our group, you can just call the United Way office. Our number is area code 570-343-1267, and we will gladly take their suggestions and their help.
Okay, once again, the United Way contact number?
570-343-1267.
And I'm sure that you would welcome ideas and suggestions.
Oh, surely. The more players we have on this team, the better it will be.
Yeah, well, again, Gary, this is a subject that I never really gave much thought to until I realized about the event that was being held through United Way. The senior population is growing. With that, the number of isolated individuals is growing. It is good to know that somebody's making an effort to try to address that problem. So hats off to you for
Thank
that.
you, David.
Gary Drapek from United Way of Lackawanna County, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
My pleasure. I'm David DeCosmo for Preview on Electric City Television. Till we see you again next time, here's hoping all your news is good.